News! Okay, we'll start with this. What is a last look at tomorrow's WBC Interim World Super Flyweight contest between unbeaten fighters Adelaida Ruiz and Virginia Fuchs. Now, I'm going with Virginia Fuchs. I've already said that much. I think she can out-hustle Adelaida Ruiz. I think even though Ginny is not as experienced as a professional as Adelaida. Adelaida's got a lot more fights and a lot more rounds in the bank than Ginny. Ginny's more talented. That will be her amateur pedigree shining through, that she's more talented with a higher ceiling than Adelaida. I expect the aesthetic of this fight to look a lot like Stephanie Pinedo's last fight with Diana Tapia on the undercard of Subriel Matias versus Liam Pato. What you saw in that fight was movement, setups, counterpunching. That's what won Stephanie the fight, though towards the tail end of it, you noticed that she started to gas out. She started to get tired. That was her lack of experience showing up, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that happen tomorrow to Virginia. That she'll win the fight, but things will get dicey towards the end because she ain't got that many rounds in the bank. She may be more talented, a more fundamentally sound, well-schooled boxer than Adelaida, but she's not a more seasoned pro. Ginny on points is the pick. Now for the implications. Whoever wins this fight becomes WBC Interim Super Flyweight Champion. Most in line, to challenge the full champion, Ashley Gonzalez of Mexico. There are 4 champions at this weight. There's Mexico's own Irma Garcia, holding the IBF, Mexico's own Ashley Gonzalez, holding the WBC, Japan's own Mizuki Hiruta, holding the WBO, and Argentina's Clara Lescurat, holding the WBA, and it's been this way for a while. In fact, I can't remember the last time I saw one fighter holding more than one belt at this weight. This division hasn't seen a unified champion in a very long time. What does this have to do with Ginny and Adelaida? I feel like this fight is an audition of sorts. Matchroom perhaps doesn't want to just invest in one of these fighters straight away. They want to put them in a sink or swim situation, see how they make out, and whoever wins, maybe that's who they invest in. But what does that have to do with unifications? The 4 champions at the weight right now, the 4 belt holders, not a single one among them fights on a major platform, not a single one among them has a major promoter behind them. Not a one, right? So in a situation where nobody's got a major promoter behind them, nobody can incentivize an offer to another champion for a unification match because nobody's got the money to do it. So what you end up with is a divided division, a division that stands divided and stays divided because there's no money flowing through it. And how would tomorrow's fight change that? I figure that whoever wins tomorrow's next fight might once again fight under the Matchroom banner for the full WBC title against the full WBC champion, whoever wins. And if it's Ginny that wins or Adelaida that wins, goes on to become WBC champion, then Matchroom might sign them once they've proven they have what it takes to become a full champion. At which point, Matchroom would foot the bill for the unification matches that this division has not had, the unifications we haven't been seeing. That's what I think all of this is and what it could lead to, irrespective of who wins tomorrow, Adelaida or Ginny. It's a 2-pronged process. Whoever wins tomorrow's fight goes on to fight Ashley, and if they win that fight, maybe they get a contract. And if they get a contract, maybe then we get unifications. That's what I think all of this is. And make no mistake, the super flyweight division is a deep division, but it's also a division that doesn't have a face. It doesn't have a star. It needs one to bring attention to it and consolidation and money. Gotta have money. So hopefully tomorrow's fight opens that door and we can all go through it. May the best woman win? I think it's gonna be Ginny, but we'll see.
I don't want to put your back against a wall, but does 1.5 sound bad for a unification fight going to Boots' hometown?
It's like you said, you're going on different network. You're going in his town, like to the Lion's Den or something, and everything is going to be against you.
That never stopped Usyk from pursuing a title or Usyk from pursuing a unification match. Every single title that man has ever won was on the road. So maybe what it really is that you guys don't believe in yourselves the way he believed in himself. Separating the contenders from the pretenders.
And it's a unification fight. It's not if he fought like Avanesian and he got more, so it doesn't make sense in my eyes. Everybody have different opinion, but I don't know.
Okay, no, I mean, so you also feel that's too low to go to the Lions' Den. It's not enough.
It's never enough.
Look, also it's a unification fight. They say, "Oh, Boots." I saw this. They are saying like he has like a big name and he sells like arena. But yes, he sells in Philadelphia, but he doesn't sell like in Los Angeles or anywhere else.
Neither does Brian Norman. Neither do you. What's your point?
Like me, I can sell arena in Lithuania, so I'm superstar here. Everybody knows, and I will sell out the arena completely.
No, you won't. Because if you could sell out an arena in Lithuania, you'd be selling out arenas in Lithuania. You're not. You're not based out of Lithuania. You're based out of America. And like a lot of American fighters or American-based fighters, this guy's got delusions of grandeur. Jaron Boots Ennis sold over 14,000 tickets in his native Philadelphia, where Eimantas Stanionis and Brian Norman don't sell out that many tickets anywhere, where they're from or anywhere else. Anywhere. You don't sell anywhere. You're undercard fighters. You don't sell in his hometown or in yours or someplace else. That's what separates you. Brian Norman and Eimantas Stanionis both fought on undercards in their last fights. I think they'll be fighting on undercards again in their next fights. And these are the people that want to tell me and you 1.5 or 1.7 is not enough for a couple of undercard fighters. A sobering take from veteran boxing scribe Stephen Kimothy, who said, "Here's the reality on Boots versus Norman's situation. If Norman and his handlers thought they could win, they take that deal from Matchroom. Instead, they take what is probably a much lesser deal back on an ESPN top rank card. It's a convenient safety net to have. As for not getting what we wanted, well, I'm sure every boxer and their management want billions of dollars, but that's not the way it works. In theory, you get what you're worth. Or can. Bitch. But what is the deal for that ESPN appearance? And did they quote-unquote get what they wanted for that fight? And how much was that? I'm guessing it's significantly lower than what Eddie Hearn's offer was, but it's probably significantly lower risk, too. How many boxers and their teams are actually looking to win a fight? How many? And parlay the victory. Parlay it to bigger fights, bigger money? How many? These fighters don't believe in themselves. Brian Norman, Eimantas Stanionis. Eimantas Stanionis is talking like he's got all these prospects, all these big things on the horizon. This is a guy who, when he ran out of money, he had to move back to Lithuania, back into his mother's house. This is the guy that's telling you 1.5 is not enough. Okay, J.D. Rockefeller, if you say so. And the reason that these guys are willing to hold a unification match to ransom, one with Boots, is because they don't really want to unify themselves. They don't really want to be undisputed champions themselves. How do you think a set of negotiations between Brian Norman and Eimantas Stanionis would go? Do you think it would go any better than these negotiations? Then why aren't they negotiating? Why aren't they fighting? Oh, they can jerk each other off online, but can they actually make a fight? I had a guy that goes by the name OMR say 50-50 split and make the fight happen. 50-50 between Boots and Brian. Boots should take the risk on the split. He beats Norman, stock will rise. Being a unified champion will make him the A-side to the rest of the division. Gotta take risks at this age. And Brian doesn't have to take any risks? Do you see how lopsided the logic is? It's because these B-side kind of guys always identify with the B-side fighter. Losers in life. Loser logic. You know who else did what Brian Norman just did? You know who else, quote-unquote, bet on himself? Big Rolo. Did you forget already? Rolly Romero. Don't you remember? He turned down a main event slot opposite the ring Ryan Garcia to fight Isaac Cruz on an undercard. You mean like Brian just turned down a main event slot to go fight Cuevas on an undercard? That's exactly what I mean. Now, how did that work out for Rolly? He lost. Another one of these original thinkers that goes by the name Triple H 1200, guy who frequents the channel quite a bit, and whenever he's saying something, you can almost guarantee it's going to be stupid. Of course it is. He's a Demetrius Andrade fan. He said, "Stop the excuses. Booty had a total of 4 million plus purse with a layup with no pay-per-view. So it is conceivable if they are asking for 2.2 million, which would be a 50-50 purse split with Booty totaling 4.5 million. Given this is a unification and higher profile, they can cover the 500,000.
Says the guy who's not spending any money.
With tickets and sponsors, if Booty wants to bite the bullet just like Crawford and AJ did to get the belts and undisputed...
It's not a good comparison because neither AJ or Terrence Crawford were undercard fighters like Brian Norman.
Crazy how Booty is a superstar now since Hearn signed him. Give the man 50-50 on the purse or take your middleweight behind up to 10-ounce gloves, 154 meat grinder in Saudi, and let's see how you fare against those big names up there.
I would make the recommendation that Boots should go to junior middle if I felt he could get the fights at junior middle. But at junior middle, it would be more or less the same situation, and he wouldn't be a champion. He wouldn't have that bargaining chip.
So 2 of the belts at 147 are on the PBC side of things. The same is true at 154, thus moving up there is not a solution.
It's 3 technically.
The 2 that Sebastian Fundora currently has, and the IBF title that I believe Tim Tszyu is going to win.
That's why moving up to 154 isn't actually a solution.
If he's not having luck with 2 of the PBC's fighters at 147, what makes you think he would have more luck with more of their fighters at 154?
He wouldn't.
It's a stupid suggestion from a stupid person that regularly says stupid things.
And the thing about stupid people is they don't actually know they're stupid.
The old saying goes, you can't fix stupid.
I don't try to.
What these idiots don't understand is while Brian Norman is pricing himself out, the adverse effect it has on a division, on a sport, is you get pointless filler fights that no one is excited about, like Boots versus Chukatsian, like Norman versus Cuevas.
While you're advocating for Brian Norman's bank account to get a little bigger,
it would come at our expense. If Eddie Hearn actually caved and gave these guys what they wanted, who would they charge for the pay-per-view? Me and you. Except you're probably a bum, you're probably a thief.
Who doesn't pay for anything, you steal all the content you watch, so to you, it's a victimless crime. That's how a bum,
a degenerate lowlife, looks at the situation because he doesn't pay for anything anyway.
So naturally he's gonna advocate that Eddie Hearn overpay an undercard fighter.
Losers in life and their loser logic jerking off other losers, other B-sides.
Welcome to American boxing.
Veteran boxing scribe Stephen Kimothy continued, Boots versus Norman would be a fight I'd be anticipating. I love unification bouts, but let's be clear, there is no building this. The days of marinating stuff like Leonard versus Hearns are over. Those guys fought a combined 35 times from 1978 to the time they met in 1981. They actually really built momentum towards a collision course that America was salivating over.
Yeah, and that isn't this.
Nowadays, all we have are guys who fight on different platforms that are controlled by certain promoters and box no more than twice a year. It's just scheduled programming. That's it. What is Top Rank's plan for Brian Norman? Because their plan was to put him in the ring with Teofimo.
Teofimo bailed on that plan because he said he wanted to fight in LA, not in New York. I classified that as a duck.
This is the same thing. You want to fight Boots in Vegas and not in Philly. Meanwhile, your own promoter uses you as a decorative item on somebody else's undercard.
He doesn't pay you through the nose the way you're expecting Matchroom to pay you through the nose. They're not that invested.
Stephen Kimothy continued, so is that the new thing in boxing? Stating taxes as the reason why not to take a fight? Don't we all have to pay them? Look how Al Capone ended up. By the way, I was told by a boxing guy today that I respect. Steve, the promoters are responsible for the gross, not the net.
What's that about?
Brian Norman's manager going on to Boxing Voice and talking about the taxes and the deductions and a lot of stuff.
A lot of shit.
A lot of this, a lot of that. All I hear. That's all I hear. And one is left to wonder, how could anybody defend this decision? How could any boxing fan? I mean, aren't boxing fans supposed to want to see boxing matches?
Unification.
Why is anybody defending Brian Norman's decision to circumvent this fight? And do you remember a long time ago, couple of weeks, couple of months, I told you that the American boxing fan is the kind of boxing fan that would cut off their nose to spite their face. This is about spiting Jaron Ennis.
Oh yeah, there might be 1 or 2 Brian Norman fans out there that are really big fans of Brian Norman. There might be a few, but he's not well known enough.
No.
Well known enough yet that that's the real motivating factor.
The prevalent motivating factor for all of these power brokers and fanagers we're seeing defending him. No, what it really is these guys are trying to spite Jaron Ennis because of the Crawford stuff.
Because he was clout chasing Terrence Crawford, using Terrence Crawford's name.
And he did. I'm not saying that he didn't. though two wrongs don't make a right.
Nope.
You either don't understand or don't want to understand, because all you're stuck on are your feelings, your little feelings, what you feel. You don't like Jaren Ennis.
Yeah.
To the point you're advocating against a unification match that could happen sooner than later. If these guys weren't pricing themselves out, you're gonna side with them just because you don't like him.
You think like a child.
Buddy that follows this channel knows that I'm far, far, far from the biggest Jaren Ennis fan. I wouldn't even say I'm a fan of that fighter. Not yet, but I am a fan of unification matches. I am a fan of champions fighting champions, and at welterweight, they need to.
Otherwise, that division is going to stagnate and end up like the middleweight division, which is a wasteland.
Nobody's unifying up there. Nobody's unifying down here.
Nobody.
And this is what you want, what you would prefer. Also that you can spite Jaren Ennis, or worse. You actually expect Eddie Hearn to cave, to overpay an undercard fighter, which would result in more pay-per-views that boxing don't need.
Your broke ass ain't going to pay for anyway.
That is how you can surmise the psyche, the mind of the American boxing fan. The American boxing fan is more fixed on narratives and disputes than boxing.
Did you notice they don't really like boxing?
They like the tribal element of boxing, the tribalism that is sometimes associated with it, but the actual boxing and actual boxing matches, they're not really into that. They just like arguing.
And arguing about stupid things. Really, really stupid stuff, man.
So, I mean, if Brian Norman holding a unification match to Ransom at welterweight is more entertaining to you than actually seeing the two unbeaten champions fight, you can have Adam, cowboy.
All the rest of us see is a duck.
There isn't anybody else out there trying to make a unification match except for Eddie Hearn and Jaren Ennis. The people at the PBC aren't trying, even with their own two fighters, Eimantas Stanionis and Mario Barrios, and they're not going to try to get Brian Norman in the ring. If Eddie couldn't, they won't either.
If Eddie wouldn't overpay Brian, you think the people at the PBC are going to overpay Brian?
Or do you think Top Rank is going to overpay the guys at the PBC to bring them over? Underneath it all, you know the answer to all of those rhetorical questions. That's what they are. Rhetorical. You know the answer.
The answers.
And the answer is no. You would prefer that nothing happen at welterweight.
Because you're an idiot.